People called him the Birdman. I don't remember when I first heard the name, but I'll never forget the first time I spoke to him. In those days, I used to go for a run around the park in my lunch break. I would see the Birdman every day. He would sit on the same bench, close to the boating lake, with a bag of breadcrumbs, and the birds would come to him. Then one day, as I was running, I heard him call out to me, "Young man, would you help me?" I diverted from my path, and as I approached, the birds flew away. They were used to him, but not me. "Are you okay?" I asked. He shook his head. "It hurts," he said, clutching at his chest, and then he collapsed. What happened next is a blur in my memory. I remember the first aid class they made us do at work, and I remember the defibrillator I passed every day in the park, so I ran and fetched it. It felt as if I took an age, and I believed he was dead or dying, but suddenly his eyes flew open. He coughed and spluttered, and then tried to get up. "Don't move," I said. "I'm calling an ambulance." He said he was fine, but the grey pallor of his skin and ragged breathing told me otherwise, so I made the call and held his hand as we waited. I prayed he wouldn't die, and he didn't. The paramedics came, stretchered him away, and told me I'd done all I could. When they had taken him, I realised they had asked him his name, and I hadn't listened to the answer. I didn't know who Birdman was, and I thought I probably now never would. It was some weeks later when I was running in the park again, and I saw Birdman back on his bench surrounded by birds. There were plenty of the common garden variety, but some of colour too. I've never learned all the names of them, but I recognised chaffinch, sparrows, and robins. They were around Birdman in numbers, and the ducks had come off the boating lake to join them. "Hello," I said. "How are you?" He looked blank. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "I helped you when you took ill here a few weeks ago." His expression changed. A smile lit his eyes, and he stood up from his bench and clasped my hand. My boy, I can't thank you enough. They tell me you saved my life." I sat with him then and learned his name, Francis Edward Fordham. He was 88 and with stories to tell of a remarkable life. I was so captured by what he was saying, I was late back to work, but I left him with a promise that we would meet again the next day, and we did. I stopped running and instead came every day to the park to share my sandwiches with him and listen to his stories. One day he grimaced as he bit into a wrap. "That's an odd taste," he said. "Hummus. Have you never had hummus?" He shook his head and took another bite. "I expect it's an acquired taste." "The birds don't come when I sit here with you," I said, looking at the empty sky and then at the ducks keeping their distance on the boating lake. He nodded. "They know I don't need them when you're here." I must have looked quizzical because he said, "They know I have no family or friends, so they came to me every day to keep me company. Now that you come, they don't need to be here." "I bet they miss the free food," I laughed. He shook his head. "They didn't come for the food. They came because I needed a friend." He wasn't the only one who needed a friend, and soon I couldn't wait for lunchtime and the opportunity to sit with him again. When he spoke, I hung on his every word. When it was me talking, I knew he really listened. More than that, he understood. Once I asked him if he had ever had a family, and a faraway look came into his eyes. "No, God didn't see fit to bless Alice and I with children. I was brought up in a children's home and never knew my parents, so I've never really known family." "I'm sorry," I said. Francis smiled. "It's fine, my boy. I have you." And he did. Even though I was somehow more drawn to the old man than anyone I'd ever known, I didn't think he knew I needed him as much as he needed me. Summer turned to autumn, and then as winter closed in, I worried that it was too cold for Francis. But he told me that he would come every day, whatever the weather. He said he liked his tiny flat, but it had been too empty since his Alice had died more than 20 years ago, and he was afraid if he stayed in, he might never come out again. I had spent an hour with him every weekday. I imagined he was the sort of father I'd like to have had if my own hadn't left when I was not even of school age, or the uncles or grandfather I never knew. Listening to Francis tell his stories and him listening to my troubles, hopes, and dreams, a gap I hadn't realised had been so big was being filled in my life. I knew the time would come and always pushed it from my mind, but one day Francis wasn't at the park. A pit in my stomach formed, and I hoped perhaps he'd forgotten to tell me of some appointment, or maybe he had a cold. But he wasn't there the next day, or the next. He didn't come again, and I knew why. For weeks I stopped going. Knowing Francis was gone, it didn't feel right. But one day, I don't remember deciding to do it, I found myself sat alone on the bench we had shared. I stared up at the sky as the birds flew by and replayed our conversations in my head. Then, as I was about to go back to work, a priest came and sat on the bench beside me. "You must be Mark," he said. "I'm Father Michael. I've been looking for you." "How do you know my name?" I asked. The priest smiled. "Your friend Francis told me all about you." I nodded, understanding. "He died, didn't he?" "He did," said Father Michael. "He was a good age, but he fell ill one night a few weeks ago and called for an ambulance. Then at the hospital, he asked for a priest to come and give him the last rites." He gave a small laugh. "I almost didn't manage that because he didn't stop talking about you." "Really?" "You were kind to him, a friend. He loved you very much, and that's why I've been looking for you. He wanted you to have this note." I took a folded sheet of paper from him and opened it to read. My boy, what joy you gave me in the last months of my life. I used to think the birds were my only friends, and that only they would share a bench with me. I wish I could have known you earlier, but nothing lasts forever, and now it's my time to go. I would be eternally grateful if you would scatter my ashes where we used to meet and talk. I don't know if there's anything after this life, but if there is, I pray there is a bench for you and me again one day. Live well, Francis. Today I carried a small urn of ashes to the spot I made a friend, if only for a short time. I sat on my bench for a while, and when I was ready, I scattered Francis's ashes before standing silently staring out over the boating lake, remembering Birdman. And then it happened. Just a few at first, but their numbers grew quickly. Birds of every kind began to whirl overhead. The trees became alive with their song, and then they flew down together on the bench around my feet, and a robin even alighted on my shoulder. The birds that always came when Francis was alone, and never when I was there, had come back. All the birds whose names I knew, and many I didn't, crowded around without an offer of any food or reward, and I knew they were there to bid Francis farewell. So many of them. And just as I thought there could be no more, finally the ducks came in from the lake.